Well, that's a good question. There's a lot of history to Toxteth. It's a very small postcode, but there's just so much going on. It's a really creative area. It's the most multicultural part of the city. It's just a really exciting place. It's long been a place full of vibrancy. So yeah, that's what makes Toxteth different.
Why is it special to you?
It's special to me because it's an area that I've lived in for quite a lot of my adult life. It's an area that I've got a strong sense of connection to. And as I say, I just think it's a really creative, exciting part of Liverpool.
How much of Toxteth has changed while you've been covering the area?
I've only been covering it for 6 months, so I wouldn't say there's massive changes, but I think it's a constantly evolving place. You've got areas like Lodge Lane, which is really growing in terms of the sort of foodie scene in the area. Granby Street is a ever-evolving tapestry of excitement with the market and, the attempts to sort of regenerate the area there. The things change all the time, but I wouldn't say there's been any massive sea changes since I've been on patch.
Toxteth's known for the infamous riots. Do you still see the impact of them today?
I think that's a difficult question, really. I think a lot of people in Toxteth want to move on from them. I think you can actually see the impacts in the street scene. So, there were areas of Toxteth which were blocked off in the 80s in the aftermath of the riots. I think depending on who you speak to, it still has an impact, but a lot of people want to move away from it.
Toxteth's been home to many famous people: Courtney Love, Ringo Starr,
Right.
and if you believe the myth, Hitler. Even
well, that is definitely a myth.
His brother did live.
Yeah.
But, do you know any anecdotes or the impact any of them had on the area?
I think LA's been a place with huge music scene. Dating back to 40s, 50s. I did a piece a little while ago about the club scene on LA that sort of, it was an area, it kind of emerged out of the inaccessibility of clubs in town for many of the residents in the area. It actually attracted the stars of the day, so it's long been a huge area for the music scene. I think the sort of the creativity of that area attracts people as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Does it?
Yes. It's been highlighted many times that Toxteth, one of the more deprived areas in Liverpool. How do you feel about this, and does it affect the area?
Oh yeah. I think compared to years past, there's been improvements, but I think the deprivation that you see going on is something that's really being exacerbated at the moment by the climate that we're living in, by sort of more centralised cuts to the area. I think child poverty is a huge issue in Toxteth. I think it's third in the city for child poverty levels. There's a lot of unemployment still. People talk to me about issues around getting employment in town. While there might be opportunities within Toxteth, people find it difficult to access those kind of opportunities elsewhere. But it's also a place where there's that kind of dynamism that there's an awful lot that gets sort of is growing out of the area. For example, Granby Market has brought about lots of businesses in that area that have just started off with a little stall, just selling things once a month, and from that they've gone, actually there's a market for this. And I'm going to actually take this into a business venture. So there is a lot of deprivation in the area, and there's a lot of problems. But it's also an area I think that's quite full of hope as well.
How do you think people see Toxteth?
That's a difficult question to answer, really. I suppose it depends what people and where. I think people within Toxteth themselves can, see those positives about the area. I think a lot of people are drawn into that area, so they see it themselves. I think it still suffers a bit from that reputational damage that it experienced in the 80s, but I think that's changing as well.
As far as you're concerned, is Dingle part of Toxteth, or is it its own place?
Well, It feels like a political question, that one. I mean, one of the local historians I speak to quite a lot is a man called John Harrison. Now, he maintains he is absolutely determined that Toxteth is Toxteth Park, which stretches from Osses Pool down to like the Georgian Quarter, of which Dingle is a part. Now, Toxteth itself is not any kind of like official sort of naming. It's kind of come about traditionally. So, I mean, according to like the council, for example, there is no kind of specific area of Toxteth. Is Dingle part of Toxteth? You ask people in Dingle, and quite a few people say no. You ask people in Toxteth, and they will say yes a lot of the time, but it's... I'm going to sit on the fence.
With the 24 Granby market regeneration, the 2014 Granby Street market regeneration, do you think the council should have done more than that?
I can't really say I've looked into it enough to be able to answer that question, to be perfectly honest. You know, I was actually out of the country at that point in time, so I don't know. I was out of it.
Have you heard of any Toxteth specific problems with the storm?
With the storm?
Kira?
No, I haven't heard of any, but I haven't been looking today, to be honest.
As it stands, the Echo doesn't actually employ a community reporter for the area of Wavertree.
Right.
Do you think that's a necessary position for them to employ?
I think the community reporter is really important. You know, I'd like to see community reporters in every area of the city and across the country. You know, I think that, you know, there's something quite powerful about being able to get on the ground and speak to people. You know, part of what my role is, I go out and patch a lot. And with a lot of pressures in newsrooms these days, doesn't always happen. So, I mean, I think it's really important for there to be community reporters, and why not Wavertree? Yeah.
As you said about sort of when it happens, do you not think it's more important to them to actually develop community stories that are specific to them, as opposed to just general news stories that involve Wavertree or happen in Wavertree? Should they more
I mean,
with the community, the people that live there?
It's a difficult question for me to answer that one, really. I mean, I think there's a general move towards like the hyper-local. You know, that scene is important. You know, the stories that are of interest to people in that area are being reflected, and I know that's something that the Echo are really keen to push. So yeah, I suppose.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks a lot for your time.